In 2022, over 93,000 jobs were cut in both public and private technology companies in the United States. According to Crunchbase News calculations, in 2023, more than 144,540 employees of American technology companies or technology companies with a large workforce in the U.S. were laid off due to mass job cuts. In just 1 week, ending on May 19, 2023, Crunchbase News estimates that 3,438 employees in the U.S. technology sector were let go. Would you like to know which technology companies laid off the highest number of employees? Then continue watching, and within 12 minutes, I will tell you about the top 10 companies that experienced mass layoffs, as well as the reasons that led to them. In a pioneering computer company, unlike other technology giants, the structure is dictated by unfavorable financial size, but by a change in corporate strategy. At the end of January, she laid off 3,900 people due to the unloading of the Watson Health Department, as well as the Infrastructure Management Department, now known as Kyndryl. Employees simply didn't have anything to work on because of IBM's move to cloud computing. Cutting a significant number of employees will cost the tech giant $300 million. After the previous layoff of 2,500 manufacturing jobs in January 2023, 3M announced its plans to further reduce 6,000 employees in its offices worldwide, as the U.S. industrial conglomerate aims to focus on fast-growing ventures, including electric vehicle electrification and home improvement. This move comes as uncertainty about the sustainability of the economy, coupled with rising interest rates and persistently high inflation, forces the so-called corporate America to cut expenses in recent months. We have announced measures that will reduce costs at the corporate center, further streamline and strengthen our supply chain structure, as well as optimize our go-to-market business models, which will enhance profitability and cash flow, said 3M's CEO, Mike Roman. 3M expects annual pre-tax savings of $700 to $900 million after the completion of cost-cutting measures. The pandemic-induced reduction in chip and component production has had a painful impact on the PC market overall, with Dell being among the companies hit the hardest. In February, the American computer systems manufacturer laid off 6,600 people, which accounted for 5% of its workforce. The news came shortly after the release of a disappointing quarterly report, revealing a 37% decline in shipments. After the PC boom during the pandemic era, Dell and other computer manufacturers faced a rapid decline in demand in the second half of the previous year. According to experts from IDC, preliminary estimates indicate a significant drop in computer demand in the fourth quarter of 2022, with Dell experiencing record lows even among other companies, as its shipments declined by 37% year over year. PCs account for 55% of Dell's total revenue. Clark, an employee of Dell, informed the staff that previous cost-cutting measures, including a hiring freeze and business travel restrictions, were no longer sufficient. In order to improve efficiency, the company is considering not only downsizing but also departmental reorganization. Dell has faced challenging market conditions that continue to worsen and have an uncertain future, as stated by Dell's COO, Jeff Clark, in a memo to employees, which was obtained by Bloomberg journalists. On February 9th, Disney announced the reduction of 7,000 jobs as part of its corporate restructuring plan, aimed at saving $5.5 billion. The layoffs accounted for approximately 3.6% of its 220,000 employees worldwide, and followed previous layoffs by Warner Bros. Discovery and Netflix in 2022. The Guardian reported that CEO Bob Iger outlined the restructuring plan to investors during the announcement of Disney's first quarter earnings. According to the letter, the entire process of downsizing the company's workforce will be completed by summer 2023. The mass layoffs at the Walt Disney Company are part of cost-cutting measures targeting $5.5 billion. According to a source, the layoffs will affect several major divisions of the company, including Disney Entertainment and Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products. The company announced in early January that it plans to lay off 10% of its 80,000 employees, amounting to around 8,000 people. The environment remains challenging and our customers are approaching their purchasing decisions more cautiously, said Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff in an internal memo to employees. As reported by TechCrunch, after Salesforce announced the 10% workforce reduction in early January, it could be assumed that all affected employees were informed at the same time. However, on February 2nd, social media platforms were flooded with messages from bewildered employees who unexpectedly found themselves out of a job. Previously, the company's CEO, Mark Benioff, warned at an employee meeting that the sales department could be affected since 96% of the revenue is generated by half of the sales division, while the other half contributes only 4%. Journalists believe that the layoffs at Salesforce are the result of actions by 4 activist investors who are demanding cost-cutting measures from the company. Last week, Elliott Management announced multi-billion-dollar investments in Salesforce. In October 2022, Starboard Value acquired a significant stake in the company. Like the other 2 activists, ValueAct and Inclusive Capital, they have infiltrated the company and exert influence over its operations. Last Friday, it was announced that 3 new members would join the board of directors, most likely as a nod to the activists. Against the backdrop of massive layoffs in IT giants, many have noted the lack of a layoff culture within these companies. Often, individuals would discover that they were no longer needed when their badges were deactivated and their access to work tools was blocked. According to Reuters, Ericsson plans to cut 8,500 employees, which is approximately 8% of its total workforce of 105,000 people. Some of the layoffs will occur this year while the rest may take place in the following year. The methods for reducing the workforce will vary depending on local practices in each country. In some countries, notifications about job reductions were issued this week, said Ericsson CEO Börje Ekholm in an internal memo quoted by Reuters. The cost-cutting program includes 1,400 job cuts in Sweden, where Ericsson's headquarters are located. The company was forced to take this measure as part of a cost-cutting program targeting $900 million in savings to be implemented this year. The telecommunications equipment manufacturer reported a decline in demand for its products not only in North America, where it employs 12,000 people, but also in other regions. The impact of the cost reductions is expected to be reflected in the company's financial report next month. Ericsson's annual profit for 2022 amounted to $1.8 billion, a 17% decrease compared to the previous year, while its revenue reached $26 billion, representing the same 17% growth. Last spring, Mark Zuckerberg's corporation cut 11,000 jobs, and in March 2023, it announced its intention to lay off another 10,000 employees in an effort to reduce expenses. The recruiting department will be among the first to be affected. The wave of layoffs will also impact the technology division and business groups. As part of the optimization process, Zuckerberg aims to reduce the number of management layers, so he has asked some senior-level managers to take on the responsibilities that were previously handled by lower-level managers. Meta has suspended the hiring of new employees until the end of 2023. This means that after the 2 rounds of layoffs, the company will have approximately 66,000 employees remaining. Some of those affected by the layoffs entered the United States on H-1B work visas, giving them 60 days to find a new job, or else they will have to leave the country. The CEO of Meta announced a year of efficiency following an unsuccessful 2022 when the company's revenue dropped by 4% and expenses increased by 22%. This is partly attributed to changes in Apple iOS privacy policies, which cost the social media giant $10 billion. Additionally, the company lost $13.7 billion in its Reality Labs division, which is involved in metaverse development. Mark Zuckerberg has cooled towards this direction and identified AI as the new priority. The creators of Windows and Xbox initiated their second-largest wave of layoffs in their history between January and March. It affected 10,158 employees, resulting in a reduction of the company's workforce by less than 5%. Like many other heavyweight players in the IT industry, Microsoft has been cutting its own expenses due to declining revenues. The move had the most significant impact on the HoloLens division, mixed reality goggles, which essentially ceased to exist. It is also reported that the 343 Industries studio is rebooting the development of the Halo video game due to the loss of dozens of employees. The popular platform GitHub reduced its team by 300 people, accounting for 10% of its workforce. The company expects one-time expenses of $1.2 billion in the second financial quarter due to the staff reduction. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, has been disposing of underperforming assets for some time now. One notable example was the shutdown of its cloud gaming service, Stadia, which failed to meet expectations. However, in January, the management announced even more drastic steps towards restructuring and focusing on priority areas, including the planned layoffs of 12,000 employees, amounting to 6% of the workforce. According to CEO Sundar Pichai, these workers were hired under different economic circumstances. This had a significant impact on the Area 120 incubator, where a majority of the team lost their jobs, as well as Intrinsic Robotics and, Verily, Health, which also experienced substantial workforce reductions. Waymo, the autonomous vehicle division, downsized by 209 employees, or 8% of its workforce, through 2 rounds of layoffs. Due to stringent labor protection measures, the layoff process in some European Union countries proved to be nearly impossible without prior consultations with labor interest groups. As a result, thousands of technical specialists in Europe found themselves in limbo, uncertain about their continued employment in American corporate subsidiaries. Google employees do not understand the principles behind the company's selection process for layoffs and have been sharing stories on LinkedIn about unexpectedly discovering that they were affected. Some arrived at the office early in the morning, only to find that their access badges no longer worked after more than 17 years with the company. Others attempted to access their work email from home, but were surprised to find that their work account passwords no longer granted them access, and all Google applications were removed. Former Google engineer Stephen Lin mentioned receiving a termination email in his personal inbox, noting that the message was completely impersonal rather than personalized. Amazon began mass layoffs in November of last year. The company eliminated around 10,000 jobs as part of its efforts to divest from unprofitable or inefficient divisions. The layoffs affected departments involved in device development, including the Alexa voice assistant, human resources, and retail. The giant's management had announced the downsizing back in the fall of last year, but in January, they changed their plans to increase the number of job cuts, stating that 16,000 positions would be eliminated. The reductions will primarily impact the structure of the AWS cloud platform, the People, Experience, and Technology (PXT) division responsible for human resources, as well as the advertising department and the Twitch division. These layoffs followed a significant hiring spree by Amazon during the coronavirus pandemic, as reported by CNBC. By the end of 2021, the company's total number of employees across various divisions worldwide had grown to over 1.6 million, compared to 798,000 in the fourth quarter of 2019, according to the television channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.